The Vikings were notorious for their combat skills. In this video, we will unveil the 9 tactical strategies, psychology and mindset, and weaponry that helped the Vikings dominate almost every battle. So let's get right into it. Number 1. The Viking Ulfberht Sword. Nearly 3 feet long, the Viking Ulfberht sword was the most perfect battle sword for its time. First, the Viking Ulfberht was made from the finest steel brought in from Asia, which was considered the best. This high-quality, Asian steel was light, yet strong, and flexible, and enabled Viking warriors to wield it with ease and precision. Also, the Viking Ulfberht sword was long, double-edged, and had a grooved blade that ended with sharp points. This made the Viking sword perfect for slashing motions that could easily slice deep into the opponent's flesh. Aside from the sword, another staple in the Viking arsenal was their spear, which leads to Number 2. The Viking Spear. Stabbing weapons came courtesy of the Viking straight-bladed spears. Wide blades on the Viking spear came with well-placed crossguards. This design prevented the spears from penetrating too deeply. Thus, a Viking can easily use his spear to penetrate flesh without being stuck. This saved the Vikings from expending the excess energy required to pull out the spear from its victim, an important advantage as battles continued. All in all, the Viking were armed with spears and swords that were tactically made for quick and easy killing. But now, let's into the one weapon that Vikings were renowned for, leading to Number 3. The Viking Battle Axes. The Vikings used 2 types of different axes. To cleave through the thick armors and helmets of opponents, the Vikings relied on their trademarked 2-handed axes. Smaller axes were used for tossing. But the Vikings didn't rely only on small axes for long-distance targets, they also carried bows and arrows. Now that we know what weapons the Vikings used to defeat their opponents, let's talk about the armor and shields they used to defend themselves. Number 4. Vikings' Armor and Shields. The Vikings weren't just heavily armed for offense, their armor and shields provided much-needed protection against enemy blows. The Vikings carried metal-reinforced wooden shields to absorb against powerful strikes. Their body was further protected with a layer of tunic or chainmail to minimize damage to the body. As much as swords, spears, axes, body armor and shields enabled the Vikings to become formidable warriors, they still had to fight bravely. And this was possible thanks to Number 5. Valhalla. Vikings had a huge incentive to fight with bravery. That's because death in battle was rewarded with a lifetime of feasting in the glory place of Valhalla. This eventually developed the Viking mindset known as berserker behavior, which amounted to whipping oneself into a frenzy that became a great inspiration once the battle began. The term is the basis for the modern word berserk, and this tradition can be seen today amongst professional athletes, especially football players, when getting themselves in the right mindset before a big game. However, individual bravery was just part of Viking success. The Vikings also knew how to fight as a unit against strong enemy resistance. Thanks to Number 6. The Vikings knew where to fight. The Vikings strategically planned the locations and the timing of their fights. For instance, they knew that celebrated holidays like Easter meant that their targets were less likely to be prepared to defend themselves. The Vikings also relied on the element of surprise, which made it easier to attack defenseless, landlocked countries that were rich in resources and women. As was written in medieval Ireland's Annals of Ulster, the sea spewed forth floods of foreigners into Erin, so that no haven, no landing place, no stronghold, no fort, no castle might be found, but it was submerged by waves of Vikings and pirates. It was nearly impossible to defend against grand lines of troops coming in from the seas, or from footholds they'd established, without any warning. Ireland's Annals of Ulster further reports, "It's not like they're such fantastic fighters, they're predators, and they know when to strike." Number 7. The Vikings were facing weakened opponents. Part of that weakness was psychological and began with the faith and beliefs amongst of kingdoms in England, Ireland, France and Germany. The Old Testament's book of Jeremiah had foretold of an army coming from the north, armed with bows and spears. They are cruel and without mercy. They come like men in battle formation to attack you, daughter Babylon. Believing in these prophecies, the targets of Viking raid were overwhelmed with fear even before battle. Number 8. The herd. That herd was the Danish and Norseman word for the professional soldiers each of the kings and battle leaders surrounded themselves with. These soldiers were highly trained, loyal killing machines, and they were usually the ones called upon for raids. So when a Viking longship pulled up, it was professional soldiers villages and towns had to put up a fight against. So there you have it. Here is the complete guide to what made the Vikings successful in almost all their attacks. Thank you for watching. If there are anything else you think gave the Vikings a competitive edge, please add it to the comment below. And please like and subscribe if you found the video helpful.